Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. With me today is Polydub. Say hi, bud.
Hello.
And we are here to talk about problems in academia, specifically an incident that arose within the last couple of weeks. You can read along if you want to. It's in the it's in the description here, right under Polly's channel. So make sure you check out that as well. But before we jump into all that, how you been, Polly?
Well, I'm all right. I day off from work, so that's a good thing. Been running around taking care of things. Yeah.
Sorry, taking pills. Guys, there might be a moment where I have to step away. As I mentioned last night, my son-in-law redid my garage for me, the roof, and we have a dumpster that they're supposed to pick up sometime today. And I tried to arrange this for after that, but it's 4 o'clock and they still haven't shown up. So I don't know what the hell they're doing. But if I do have to step away, I will make it as fast as possible. I'll look at him and go, look, douche, I got shit to do.
And while Monkey's gone, we'll, destroy his channel by posting things we shouldn't,
There you go. There you go. It's one of the beauties of not having OBS. There's not a whole lot you can do. You got to be kind of savvy.
Hot links to Russian sites. Yeah, it's okay.
Joseph Sara says, wow, 2 streams of 4 Lords of the Night. Actually, this is number 3. And it's the only scheduled one. Me and Polly have been talking about doing a stream like this, or at least having this discussion for a long time. But then this story came up. I don't know how many of you followed it. We did briefly mention it on Lords of the Night. It's from Quillette. And who is the guy who did the video on this?
The 1791L, is that the
yes. Yeah. And they give credit to Quillette for this, because that's where the story came from. And it's probably one of the most depressing things I've read in a long time.
Yep. It'll blackpill you on academia. Yeah.
Holy shit, man. I've long been let's say negative on college. And most of it, I've said, I think that college should be for people who are going into professional careers, teachers, lawyers, doctors, people who actually need the information, and that for the most of the rest of it, I mean, you can go to college for it, but I don't think it's necessary. I think so many people go to college these days just because we tell them they need to go to college, and. Reading this, though, depressed me. It really did. This one, I sat there probably for 5 or 6 hours after reading this, just with a fog over my head. Like, how the fuck does this happen? And let's get into what did happen, shall we?
Sure. I will go ahead and, with your permission here, post in chat the link to the 1791L video for those who want to go through it.
Absolutely.
If you don't watch 1791L, you should. They don't so much do videos as they do video essays. Yes. Long-standing, one of my favorite channels. Their editing and their research is just awesome. In any case, what happened is a couple of mathematicians put together a statistical analysis, and it was a meta-analysis, really well done, on the distribution of intelligence levels between males and females. And this research, that graph has come up a number of times before. What they were offering was a meta-analysis across a number of data sets to reinforce the validity of that distribution chart. This is the essence of what would be called hate facts in current year.
Yeah. Just real quick for those of you who are new to this subject, what this pertains to is the fact that men tend to have a greater variability in intelligence.
Yep.
We have a lot more morons and a lot more geniuses than women do. Women have less variability.
Women tend to cluster closer to the center, which doesn't mean that they're stupider. That's not the point. It means that the outliers in terms of intelligence, be it very high or very low intelligence, tends to be seen in men more than in women, which is a partial explanation as to why you have so many Nobel Prize laureates that are male and so many CEOs that are male and so forth. But it also tends to explain why there's so many extremely stupid people and prisons filled with men. Not the full explanation, but it certainly helps explain those two things. That's not to say women are not going to be outliers, but out of 100 of the smartest people in the world, a larger proportion of them are going to be men than women. Again, that doesn't mean that women are stupid. That's not the point. Now, this was just a statistical analysis, and the result of it was that, well, they tried getting it published in the top journal in the field, a math journal. It was accepted. The editor-in-chief of that journal was a woman. She accepted it, saw it as a provocative issue, but this was a solid information that could add to the conversation as she saw it. And then the TLDR version is that a whole bunch of people got bent out of shape and ended up getting pulled from publication. Even an edited version of it was not acceptable. This would be used by right-wing news sources to, I don't know what, advance misogyny, monkey? Was that their concern?
That it would be used to show women are dumb, which is really stupid, because the whole thing is, by the way, guys, men are the dumbest. The 100 smartest people, if you take the 100 dumbest, it's going to be dudes.
Yeah.
It's going to be the hold my beer guys. You don't see that among women. But specifically, the people who threw a fit over this were the women in mathematics. The women in mathematics, and they were able to not only get this paper killed, but to get it erased from history, basically.
And it writing a not public, i.e., secret letter to the National Science Foundation, the NSF, which is a largely government-funded science funding project. There is private money that's involved in it, but largely it's government money that the NSF wrote to the two mathematicians in question and said, we will no longer fund future projects along these lines, as well as we want the NSF logo and our name removed from this paper.
Yeah.
The important thing to keep in mind, when the paper was taken down from being published in a peer-reviewed journal, it had passed peer review. There was nothing wrong with their math, their methodology, their data sets, nothing. The NSF had no problem with the methodology or the data sets. Nobody had any problem with the methodology or data sets. It's what the information represented that they didn't like. And that is so key here. That's like, listen, what you're saying is true. Now, let's talk about the damage to society if you publish this truth.
Yes, how dare you?
Yeah, in their mind, the damage. Let's keep that in mind. It's not like it's some kind of clear damage. It was damage according to their worldview that would be caused.
Yeah, the first woman who threw her fit, God, what was her name? I know it's in here somewhere, but this is a long fucking article. Anyway, her objection was not that this was bad math or bad science or bad academic pursuit. It was how it might be seen.
And with all of the people complaining about this, the various professors and administrators complaining about this, eventually one of the two individuals dropped out of the research project. He couldn't take it. It was just like, because this is career destroying stuff here.
Yeah, his name is Sergei Tabachnikov.
Let's go with that.
Yeah, I know it's Sergei. Sergei, and the other person who wrote this was Theodore Hill. Sergei had to drop because he still needs his job.
Yeah, and Hill stuck with it. In approaching the president of the university, basically for a redress of grievances, like we are being talked against, or now Hill alone is being talked against. The president of the university's response was the people that were taking issue with it were expressing their First Amendment rights and doing so, and he saw no problem with that.
You know, and I don't have a problem with saying they were expressing their First Amendment rights, but that's not what this is about.
It wasn't even close to it. That was a sidestep of the issue and brought in something completely ungermane. It was just
look, I have no problem with if somebody had gone through this and said, look, this is where you're wrong here, here, and here, and here, then discredit it. Fine. But I don't think this should be published because someone that is the funniest part of this to me, because this was, what was the name of the magazine or the journal? I know it's here somewhere. Mathematical Intelligencer was the first place they tried to get it published. And that's the one where the idea that this could cause damage to society. How many women out there, young girls, are reading Mathematical Intelligencer?
And it's funny you say that, because you're right, because the claim is that this will preclude, stop, demotivate young women from getting involved in math. And it's like, it will?
How? Give me a how, please.
Listen, I would kill to be, well, not kill, but I would do a lot of bad things to be published in the top journal in my field, knowing that the circulation of that journal is perhaps 500 to 800 issues. Because
yeah, and it's mostly going to be people who are interested in that field, either actually working in it or who see it as a hobby.
Right.
And the hobbyists are very few and far between on these kind of journals. Yeah, especially a mathematical journal. Come on,
it's deep, dense stuff, like really beyond the pale of like anything you'd want to read for entertainment value, unless you're a hyper nerd.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that this is going to hurt. But remember, right-wing activists might pick this up and tell women, by the way, if you're at the top of your field, you're an outlier.
As Lex said, the guy from 1791L, because it's two guys, Lex and Christian, right-wing news sources will get a hold of it and make a lot of hay out of it, basically. And his snarky comment was, so the truth is truth until Fox News reports it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if a right-wing journal does get a hold of this and go, oh my God, guys, look, we have proof that men are more intelligent and dumber than women. So what? What does that change? The part that we haven't got to yet, and I do want to make sure we talk about this, is that this was eventually published. It was published
in altered form, but yeah.
It was published on a website. And what happened over the next few days was weird. It was removed from that website. Not only was it removed, the URL that it had been at, another paper showed up at. It wasn't discredited. They didn't issue a retraction. They just made it go away, which is, if you enjoy learning at all, or the pursuit of learning or scientific endeavor, that is scary as fuck.
Yeah.
That somebody that a paper, even if it's discredited, fine. You say this has been discredited by this, and this. Here's the links to where that's at. You don't just go, this does not exist anymore. This never existed. That's the part when I got to that part where I was reading the article, I was like, holy shit, how does that happen? And now I am not in college, and I'm well away from college age. I mean, I suppose I could go and they could write a nice story about the old guy who went back to college, but you are.
I'll revisit that point in a second, but go ahead.
You and I have talked about college a few times, and you've told me this is much worse than I think.
Yeah.
Because I've always attributed it mostly to the arts and the things I talked about earlier, pursuits that maybe they're academic pursuits, but they're not necessarily going to help you in a job later on.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing this with math, with statistical analysis, man, that fucked me up. I'm not going to lie to you.
I can understand that, but it's how pervasive it is. Like and that is pervasive to the point of being in admin as well, in administration as well. If the faculty heads and the deans are like-minded on a given issue, what any individual professor, tenured or not, doesn't matter, doesn't matter. Administration has a lot of power because they control the funding, and through funding and personnel authority is how management power happens. And you can make what you want to happen. It really doesn't matter. I mean, take a look at the engineering departments, where a lot of engineering departments function by, here's a math test to get in. Well, let's say we have 100 seats that are available for the incoming year. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we have decided that for the sake of gender equity, which is the new catchphrase instead of equality, 50 of them will go to women and 50 of them will go to men, because traditionally engineering departments are dominated by men.
Sure.
Yeah. So we'll do 50-50 because somehow the math test that we're giving people is sexually biased, or is gender biased. The point is that you will have, let's say, 500 men that are applying and 100 women. And now that means that only 10% of the men who apply will be getting in, and 50% of the women who apply will be getting in. How do you think that the female versus male entrance to that department would compare to each other?
Not well. I don't have a problem with that as long as the 50% of women are above the 90% of men. If their actual academic scores are that way, but not just because you have a vagina.
But they're only being judged against each other.
I know.
You see what I mean?
I do, and this is the same thing with women in sports that I come up with a lot, because it's like, why don't women get paid as much? Well, play against the best in the world, not the best women in the world,
right?
And see how well you do. In the scenario you just described, I can't say for certain, but given the likelihood, those 50% of women, at least half of them don't belong there. And that doesn't help us. That does not help society. That doesn't help academic research to put people in positions that they don't fucking belong in.
It doesn't help women. I know that sounds patriarchal, where it's like, let me tell you what's best for you. But let me tell you something. If you all ran the test and it was done just straight on okay, who scored 100%, you're in, then 98, 99, and on that way down as a, percentage of how well you did on the math exam, you would have a lot less women getting in if the historical pattern held. But those women that did get in absolutely would be able to compete with anybody at or around their percentile.
Sure.
The women, the bottom half of the percentile of the women who got in, who occupy those 50 seats, couldn't compete with anybody in their class except for the other people at the bottom, the very bottom.
And I've seen that kind of stuff in colleges. We see it with the Supreme Court decision to keep to allow affirmative action. You're not helping anybody with this shit. Put the best of the best in there. I don't understand the problem with judging people based on their actual performance. But we've seen that. But this paper, man, this one, to just actually make it go away in the field of math, I just, oh my God. Do you see a lot of that kind of stuff?
Where in terms of different departments?
Sure.
Sure. Absolutely. And in one direction, and in one direction only.
Well, here's the thing. I have no problem with academic types being a little hesitant to accept new research. I think that's actually healthy, because it makes them be more, what's the word I'm looking for? Critical of it.
Skeptical of half-baked new ideas.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But there's a difference between being skeptical and just literally making it disappear for no reason, because nobody has come out and said this is all wrong. Well, there was one person, and it was mentioned in the video too, that somebody's father-in-law said, the statistics are wrong, but there was never any evidence of that. The only things, there were a couple of things where they revised, because they were shown, look, this you might want to revise this. But nobody's gone through and said, okay, this is why this whole fucking thing is wrong.
No, it completely passed the peer review process without an issue, which is not easy to do. Usually when you submit to peer reviewed, you're going to get revise and resubmit, or a polite rejection.
Right.
It's rare that you will get just because usually there are 4 different anonymous reviewers that go through it, and all 4 anonymous reviewers accepted it at the Intelligencer.
Yeah, and that's what bugs me about this one. I was not aware that kind of shit was going on. And man, kids, why are you going to college these days? And sorry, I know you're going to college. Do you see a way to turn this around? A way to stop this kind of stupid shit?
I can tell you what's at the root of it, and what is at the root of it is the power of social denouncement and social ostracization. You cannot say certain things. Like if you get that sexist label put upon you, you've got like actually very serious problems that you're looking forward to.
Yeah.
It and it is not a matter, depending on the room you're in, not just a matter of not saying things that might be interpreted as misogynist. You must come out on the side of certain progressive values, or your silence will be interpreted as some sort of tacit approval of misogynist things. So believe me, when Trump comes up, I nod along like, yeah, fuck that guy. Yeah. Pussy grabber, you know, it's just
goddamn pussy grabber. Yeah, I can understand that.
Some American is in chat, and she mentions something. I can give you examples of academics not being awful too. There's a lot going on. No, she's absolutely right. It's there are a lot of things that are happening, and then says, but we also need to look at the norms and the issues in particular departments. SD, I don't disagree with you. I think you're right, but I think there's an important addendum to that there are no, while there are problem departments, everyone's going to bring up your gender studies departments and your sociology departments, right? There are not. That doesn't mean that everyone who's working in a sociology department is doing something evil. And by the same token, there's no such thing as a sacrosanct, sacred department. Like math is pure. Okay,
math should be pure.
Well, the methodology of it may be pure, but us flawed humans are the ones who are using it.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, numerology is something you can point to with math and go, yeah, there's nonsense right there. For those of you who don't know numerology, you can use numbers to make anything mean anything, and you can look it up. It's true.
Numbers have metaphors, man. What are you denying?
But math should be
palm reading is no good either.
No, palm reading is the only thing that's actually pure. That is the only real thing in the world. God, but that's what we're getting to in colleges and SCA. I understand. Yes, there are some good out there. But I also look at my daughter's education and her having to take gender studies to get a degree in math, and that makes no sense to me. Most of what I see coming out of colleges, or at least the what people want colleges to be these days, are brainwashing farms. You just said I have to nod along in certain areas, whether you agree or not, because they fucking control what happens next. And I understand why. I do. They're the teachers and it's not even just the teachers. You got your TAs as well. Well,
okay. That's just says you guys don't listen though. When I talk about the good, you always shut it down like it's not possible. No, it's absolutely possible. I see it. My only assertion is that the bad actors have a powerful megaphone and a social stick to whack others with that nobody else has in terms of its social power grab authority. And, by that, I mean, when somebody says, I don't know, isn't that kind of like colonial? It's a little bit racist, don't you think? That will end a conversation so fast in an academic environment. You have no idea. So much more so than, well, your syllogism is really poorly constructed there. The person will actually argue with you when you say that. You know what I mean? If you call somebody a racist, though, they're like, hey, whoa, no, I'm not, blah, blah, blah. They will start backpedaling so fast they could sprain an ankle. And I don't blame them. Because one is career ending, the other one is not.
She said there's alternatives for almost every single class. Yes, my daughter had the choice between gender studies or race studies for her degree in math. Yeah, I'm not saying all college is bad. I think it's getting worse every day. And I think a large part of it is that liberals were smarter than conservatives when it came to this. They know where to influence people, and it's in colleges, and it's starting to seep into high schools now.
I get what you mean, like in terms of like smarter, but it's also a matter of a critical mass of individuals, like regardless of your political leaning or your business sense or whatever. You get a certain number of like-minded people in a group. They will only bring other like-minded people into the group.
Oh yeah.
And that is simply what happened at universities, which is a better explanatory model than anything else. I don't want a bunch of people that are going to disagree with me, so I'm going to bring on other like-minded people. I think their research is great because it's also what I research. And
Okay, I'll give you that. I won't argue that point. I do think that a lot of it is influenced by the times as well. If you go back a decade or two and look at who was teaching colleges, then you do have liberal-minded people, and the people that they're teaching tend to be liberal-minded people because that's what they're taught to be. And uh, I think it's just an exponential thing as well. The more you, even with what you say, I'm bringing on somebody that I agree with. Well, yeah, when that happens exponentially, that's all you're going to end up with, and that's why you find overwhelmingly colleges tend to be run by liberals, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I want to throw that out there. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's when you are not allowed to disagree that it becomes a bad thing. And this paper we're talking about wasn't even disagreeing. It was just trying to find a reason for why this happens with men and women within, actually males and females within a species, because the report actually talks about how Darwin noticed among various animal species this is the same throughout. Men are the outliers, women tend to be grouped. and they found that there was never any research on why, and that's what they were trying to show with their mathematical model, was why this happens. And nobody even disagreed with it. That hurts my brain, dude. I can't tell you how much that hurts my brain.
Well, okay, SDA's texting like a mad woman, and a lot of her points are really good. It's like you always have the option to go to a different college. Yes, often forfeiting a number of your credits depending on what you're doing in terms of transfer. It's a lot easier earlier on, like in your first year or two, to transfer over. After that, you've kind of committed yourself to a given matriculation. Which means you're going to have to probably like retake a number of courses, end up taking 45 or 50 instead of your standard 40 to be able to. So it becomes increasingly difficult the longer you're in a university. You're only going to see what it's, quote, really like once you get up into your junior and senior year, when you're taking senior courses, of just how indoctrinational some of the courses can become, especially when it's, okay, I've taken up all of my electives and now it's time that I have to take the required courses because I haven't, especially if there's a social justice contingent to it. That is the most evil thing. That is just awful when social justice courses become required. Oh,
SDA, what class were you taking that had the cry box when Trump got elected? Was that Trump gets elected cry box class? Because I'm betting it's not. I'm betting you didn't sign up for that. I mean, you can sit here and tell me about how you can go anywhere and do anything, but you've experienced this.
Usually, unless they do something dramatic, whatever you joined at, you will be grandfathered to. Whatever year you started in will be your program of study that you can follow through to the end. So if they change it halfway through, unless something really weird is happening, you'll be unlikely to have to be forced to conform to that.
I don't think all colleges are bad. I don't think all teachers are bad. I think it's getting worse, and I think if your answer to it is we just need to go to different colleges, you're blinding yourself to what's really going on here. Because the problem with academics is that if you take a look at something like intersectionality, that started as a moronic book by a college professor. If you look at something like white privilege, that started as a moronic book by a college professor. And these are things that have become normal in our, not just in our colleges, but in our society.
I would deny the importance. It doesn't matter if it was started by a bum in the street. The point is that it had utility and was used. There was utility to identifying a given target. This is who is to blame. There's a utility to Marxist thinking in terms of classes of oppression. You're either an oppressed or an oppressor. There's utility to that. Lots of people publish lots of things, but they don't have the utility to be able to blame things. So thus they go nowhere. No one hears of them.
I would argue that the professor title adds credence to it, and that's why it gets picked up. I've yet to hear of a book by a homeless guy who thought of any of this, or even just a regular Joe Schmo. Almost all of this shit has come from books written by college professors.
Michael Eric Dyson is a doctor and fucking credentialed as a motherfucker. How much credibility does that lend him in your mind?
In my mind, not much at all, but to a lot of people, it means a lot.
Because what he's saying has utility for certain people, but not for others. See my point?
And nobody would be listening to him if he was Michael Eric Dyson, the fry cook. Thank you, Ragnak. The communists need some form of class division. Oh, by the way, I missed a super chat from Flair way back at the beginning. He insulted both of us. I forget what exactly, but I know he was calling us gay. So there you go, Flair. I apologize for not getting the exact quote out. But yeah, I understand what you're saying, that the utility of it. But I think that the professor title lends a lot of credence to it. That's why people start paying attention.
Maybe in the very beginning, but there's certain ideas that do have. Okay, lots of interesting ideas are out there, and they're all published by professors. Why do some of them,
now that
get
point I will
get
grant you,
and the other ones do not?
That so point I will grant you.
I don't really think we're disagreeing. It's just like there's out of 1,000 articles published, why does one of them get legs and the others do not? And it's, well, especially when you can do oppressor, that's would be why. It's lazy social Marxist thinking.
And yeah, like I said, that point I will grant you that it has the utility. It's similar to why do people keep voting for people that are offering you money? Because that they're offering you money. It's something that serves you. Are you as down on colleges as I am? I'm going to guess not. Yeah.
In very specific ways that are career oriented, yes. Overall, no.
Are you one of those people that think most people should go to college?
No. College has become to mean so many different things over the years. Like, you take a look at, like, let's say, everyone loves to bring up the founding fathers, and I'm one of them. Let's take a look at what the founding fathers thought of as college education. It was Latin, study the classical world, so Greece and Rome, and scripture.
Yeah,
that was an education, literally. And you could speak Latin like nobody's business and read all the classics. You knew your scripture like nobody's fucking business, and you knew the classical world and could cite Ovid from memory. So you just didn't study a wide range of things. You study a small amount of things. Now, that was college, and that was a high education for them. And I actually think it is. Like, that's an incredible grounding in the world, in my opinion. Now we think of college as something else where we don't go 10 miles wide, 2 inches deep. That's college education now, as broad as it can be. I still think to be educated about the world is a good thing. Oh, you mentioned the old guy in class, like a joke about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
As somebody who's taught classes and TA'd a number of classes, mature students, as they get called in
mature. I like being called mature. I don't
mature.
Get that much.
They're my favorite students. They do all the readings. They ask really interesting questions. They always show up to office hours to follow up. They read the stuff in the footnotes. They're there to learn, baby. And it's so cool because they're like, you know what? I made some nice money. I'm retired early, or I'm about to retire in like 3-4 years. And I've always wanted to take a history degree. I've always wanted to understand more about political science, and they're there to learn. And oh man, they are awesome.
But we're still the old ones.
Well,
mature. I'm sorry.
That's mature. That's a you problem. That's
yeah, it is. As I was growing up, I watched this happen way back when I was young. You constantly heard about, I was the first person in my family to go to college, and now everybody goes. I swear to God, I saw this. I once saw an ad in a paper for a fork truck driver. Minimum 2-year college required, and there's literally no reason for a fork truck driver to have a 2-year college degree. And when I was younger, I was like, I don't understand why they're pushing for this. And as I'm older now, I seriously can't help the feeling that it's because it's easy to indoctrinate kids. A lot of the stuff that kids get pushed into college for, they don't need to go to college for. And I think trade schools for most of these kids would be a much better idea. I don't. I've had people argue with me. Well, at least a 2-year degree, so they get a well-rounded education. Okay, but I don't see what that does for them necessarily, unless they find another pursuit higher up in education. If you're going to be a teacher, I think you need to have gone through a lot of school, because you need to be able to talk about what you're going to teach. I think if you're going to be a lawyer, you have to go through law school. And if you're a doctor, you got to go through medical. I understand it for certain things, but I never understood the push to send so many people to college other than to say, yeah, I went to college.
Well, if that's the lone thing, I totally accept that. And you talked about the truck driver. I totally agree with that. It's better to go when you're really young and have no fucking experience anyway, and work while you go to college on the side, especially with internships and stuff like that, because there can be the experience that you're looking for. There's a reason that internships, unpaid ones at that, I did them, are as popular as they are, because there's the experience that people claim that you can't get while going to college, and everyone who just goes into the workforce is going to be more advanced than you in terms of experience. Yes, but there's ways that you can go about it. I don't have any kids, so I can't speak to this, but being sort of like an idealistic guy who doesn't have children yet, I would think that if I had a daughter or a son, I'd want them to be a worldly person. I'd want them to have studied history. I'd want them to have a well-rounded worldview. So to go to college would be like a way of doing that. So I would encourage it. That's just me.
2 of my 3 children have gone to college. One, my daughter mentioned she got a degree in math. My son is going because he wants to teach, and I understand both of those. To go just to go, I think that's something you do after you've been in the world and made money to where you can afford that, or like you said, do it as something where you're working as you go, to where you're paying it off and you're not ending up with $10,000 in debt, or God, that's even a low number these days. Just so you can say, yeah, I'm well-rounded. Well-rounded doesn't pay the bills. You know what I mean?
No, it doesn't. And there's nothing wrong with a great piece of fatherly advice. Again, not a father, and bad comment reviews. Fuck you for calling me lonely. I don't like being called out in public like that. That well-rounded is great. That's what minors are for. Take your major in something solid and employable. Take your minor in the history that you're so fascinated by. That is still,
absolutely.
That is a great piece of advice run with that. And somebody else mentioned community college. In sending so many people to college, there is a surplus of instructors. Believe me, I'm one. It becomes a very big competition to become an instructor, because there's so many of us graduating. I mean, I'm not graduated yet, but I have the fear of what's going to happen when I do. You really got to play rough and hard to be able to get those few spots that are available. A lot of people end up in community college. There are a huge amount of highly qualified, really interesting instructors working at community colleges. I'm tired of the community college stereotype of that's where the retards who can't get into a real college go. Fuck that. Yeah. That's bullshit. It
is real college. They do real work there. The difference is you're not paying out your nose for a university. To that point, the reason that you guys have so much problem with so many of you jostling for so few spots is because when I was a kid, they told everybody, you might want to become a college professor because there's not enough of them. And they make really great money. Yeah, that's what they told us when I was a kid. And it's the same reason we have too many lawyers now. There's a overabundance of lawyers, because when I was a kid, they told us all in high school, you want to be a lawyer because you'll make great money and there's not enough of them. And now there's way too damn many. Yeah. It's funny how that works out. And I'm not blaming anybody, because at the time they weren't wrong. But so many people were like, yes, I need to do that. And now you're competing with my generation, bitch. How you like that?
You boomers ruined the world. At least that's what I hear on YouTube all the time.
I am Gen X, you motherfucker.
Okay, you're Gen X. Excuse me. Well, I will say this.
Why do we always get forgotten?
Because the millennials apparently stretch over 25 years and Gen Xers are apparently 4 years from as I understand it. Like,
Yeah,
it's just,
no, we are full generation. God damn it. But yeah, you know what? The great part is we don't get blamed for anything. So
yeah, you do. You're slackers. Remember,
no,
you listen to
well,
Nirvana and slacked.
that's what we used to get blamed for, but now we don't exist, so we don't get blamed for shit.
Well, I will say this as you were talking about it, like that as kids we were told this. I would say that there's more of a cultural thing than anything because law school is only 3 years. You float through a degree, any degree, and believe it or not, do you know how many law school applicants take philosophy? Around 35 to 40% of them.
I would imagine it was higher, actually,
because you have to study logic,
yeah, exactly,
and all of its first order forms to be able to understand all of the legal constructs as they're constructed, like on paper in law, because they're all ordered in a very particular way. But anyway, there are more individuals in law school in the United States than there are practicing lawyers in the rest of the Western world combined right now.
Yeah. I don't doubt that at all. Real quick, Ragnar, thank you. You don't need a college degree to be a lawyer. #bar. True, but it makes it easier. Well, I don't know if it makes it easier, but I would recommend it.
Jean-Pierre Polinarf has asked me for a second time, how old am I? As of 2 weeks ago, I am 31.
Ah, congratulations. Happy birthday.
Yeah, well, I denied I was in my 30s during the whole time that I was 30. I was like, no, it's not really 30.
It's the end of your 20s, technically.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I told myself. I'm still kind of 20-ish, in my 20s-ish. But yeah, I'm 31. It's also a thing with the United States. It's also a cultural thing. Like, why is it in Spain that they think it's cool to sleep for 2 hours in the middle of the afternoon? Because that's how they roll. It's a cultural thing. The United States has always been, and in my opinion, always will be, a very litigious place.
Sure.
It's we have no monarchy. We talk about the Constitution like it would. Moses got it on Mount Sinai. The law is what we have. The rule of law. We talk about it all the time. Legalese and legal understanding absolutely permeates everything that we do. So of course we've got a lot of lawyers. Of course we have a lot of law schools. I don't find any of that particularly surprising. It just seems correct that would happen.
But like I said, when I was in high school, there was a shortage. And I don't know if it's because of any tort law that's changed since then. But yeah, there was a shortage they told us about repeatedly. People used to tell me, counselors used to tell me I should be a lawyer, and like, I don't want to go to fucking school that long. But yeah, they brought that up all the time. The other ones they brought up, engineers, which that's kind of a hard one to bring up to kids because unless you're good at math, you're going to suck at that job. But yeah, there were several careers like that. Another one was computer programmers, and boy, did they underestimate that one.
Yeah. Bad comic review says litigious. I'll sue for that. Yeah.
There you go.
Remember to de-ice your sidewalks. It's public property, but it was in front of your house. I'll sue your ass if I slip on it. Like, for real. Like, it's
there was actually a case where a burglar fell through a skylight on a house he was breaking into and sued the homeowners and won because it wasn't safe enough. That is a true. When I heard that case, I'm like, there's no way he's gonna win, and then he did. I'm like, that's fucking retarded.
There's no way you can possibly win on that. That's great.
Benjamin Boyce has great content on academia. Thank you, Point Curation. That case was fucking ridiculous. There's a great book out there. What's it called? Dumb Criminals or something like that. And it was they mentioned in the start of the book that a lot of the police they talked to were kind of apprehensive about talking to him at first because they didn't want to be shown in a negative light. And the guy's like, no, it's not you. We want to talk about dumb criminals. And some of the cases in there, my absolute favorite one, and I've talked about this before, but I love it. So there was a cop. He walked up to a known crack house. He knocked on the door and he asked them if he could buy some dope. And like, dude, you're a cop. He goes, but I'm cool. And they sold him dope. And yeah, he busted them all because you just sold oh God, it was fucking stupid.
Yeah, but I'm cool.
But I'm cool.
Benjamin Boyce, I'm just going to pop that channel in chat. For anybody who's interested Prospero, SDA, anybody who's actually interested in the kind of like the politics that go on campus, I highly recommend his channel. It's great. He's from Evergreen.
Oh, I do have a question about college for you. It's been noted in many places that the growth of administration is ridiculous. It is outpaced as a percentage anything else going on in colleges, and it accounts for a shit ton of their money. Do you think that's a problem, or do you think it's actually necessary? All the administration that's bloomed up, or at least in your college, do you think there are too many administrators?
Well, I've gone to a number of campuses because I've done undergrad, master's, and now doctorate, and did a year at a different campus as well. So yeah, yes, it's a problem is the short answer. It's a big one. Organizations being top heavy as they develop over time through path dependency. Does that sound surprising to you? I mean, well, lots of people work in retail environments, and it's like, too many chiefs, not enough Indians. Yeah, it's an old story. Of course. Yeah, it's a huge problem.
In like a retail environment, because I worked at Walmart. I mean, while I was there, they were actively trying to cut all that down.
Nice.
Yeah, it was.
It's almost like when money matters, people have an invested value and not fucking around with the budget.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works out. Look at the public school system in the U.S. Don't get me started on public school system, because
well, I will say this: money makes things matter, and it does, because personal investment counts. It depends on the company, because you can have companies with literally 50 to 75 vice presidents, and then an executive board, and all the people that do the real work are far beneath them. As it got said in Wall Street, Gordon Gekko. You ever seen that movie, Wall Street, from 1986? Yeah. Remember Gordon Gekko's giving his speech and talking about Tildar paper, and he said, he goes, "I've done a research over the past year, and as far as I can figure out, the majority of the salary of these 50 vice presidents is covered just by all of the paper that they send back and forth between each other." And yeah, that's a reality too. So just because there's money involved doesn't automatically mean that it's gonna be good. But you asked about specifically universities. One of my ongoing criticisms, and again, hashtag not all, but there are a number of people out there that are administrators masquerading as scholars. They got their job by virtue of being an instructor and a researcher. They spend the majority of their time occupied with admin matters, that they sit on a couple of different departmental committees, and then they sit on a faculty committee, and then they're on an interdepartmental committee, and they teach one course a semester, if that. And it's like, so what was the last time you published a paper? We hear the argument of publisher perish inside of academic culture. To get tenure, once you get tenure, there are a number of people that were looking to get to what tenure for them is early retirement. Now I will just spend my 9-to-5 day sitting on committees and spending as much time voicing my important opinion as possible. I've sat in enough departmental meetings to know that there's some people who just like to hear themselves talk. And,
yeah, well, I feel like you were looking at me when you said that.
I was thinking, should I say, because I can be a pretty chatty Cathy. Well,
when it comes to this, the administrators and stuff, one of the articles that have come out most recently is all about the diversity offices on campus. And I want to say it was U of M, the last one I saw, where the budget for this thing makes up like, I want to say it was like $13 million just for, I don't want to throw numbers out. I remember reading it, but I can't remember how many people that made up. A diversity officer. How many do you really need on campus? These weren't even a thing 10 years ago.
Yeah, but they're actually paid. Be more scared of the Berts, man. Those fuckers volunteer. That's frightening.
What's a Bert?
Bias incident response team.
Oh, fuck those people. Yes.
Those bastards volunteer. To cite another movie, Godfather Part 2, when they're in Cuba, it's like the soldiers are paid to fight, the rebels are not. And what does that tell you, Michael? It tells me they can win. Yeah, be frightened of the people that fight for free. Private soldiers in the American Revolution beat the British, didn't they? And they weren't paid.
Well, with the help of the French army. Let's
be
fair.
That?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
Because it's true.
well, yeah, but it's also not true that every loyalist went to Canada. It doesn't stop you from repeating that on stream.
Every loyalist went to Canada. No, I didn't say every loyalist. I just said a bunch of pussy ass loyalists went to Canada, and that's why there's Canadians.
And that's the fact, right?
I didn't say all. Hashtag not all. Just a lot.
We I could take issue with a whole bunch of things you've said about that period, but we'll save that for some other stream. It's just whatever.
Well, see, this is another part I have to say. The ranting monkey is for entertainment purposes only. There's a lot of stuff that I say that is meant as like that part
to provoke Polly. Apparently,
it's just to have some fun with it because it is true. A lot of loyalists went to Canada. It's true, guys. Does that mean they all did? No.
It was the nearest safe port. The British took them on in their ships, only as many as their ships could hold when they were extricating them from Boston, because it was a pledge they made to General Washington that they would do so. What were they supposed to do? Take them across the Atlantic? No, they dropped them off in Nova Scotia because it was the nearest safe port. That's not the same as a whole bunch of loyalists hightailing out of the colonies because they didn't want to fight.
Should have shot them. Should have shot them.
The majority of the people in the colonies at the time were blowing the winders. It's like 3 to 5% who actually fought in the revolution.
Hey, that might be true, but you know what? The revolution won, and I'm an American now, so I can look back and go, fuck them.
And this is why college is important, because it teaches history.
I know the history. I haven't denied anything. Have I denied any truth? No. I've had some fun with the Canadians. That's all.
You went a couple of moments ago from saying,
what did I say?
Let me tell you something about Canada real quick. The question with Canada is not what's wrong with Canada. It's what happened to you, Canada. That's my question. Pearl Harbor's bombed, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In the next 2 weeks, the largest volunteer army to ever, largest amount of volunteers to ever volunteer for military service happened in Canada, because their neighbors were attacked unjustly. 600,000 men.
Mm-hmm.
That's shocking. More Canadians volunteered in the following 2 weeks than Americans did, because their neighbors were attacked. That's unbelievable. Like, just general geographic patriotism. Everybody loves to talk about during the Vietnam War the amount of soldiers that burned draft cards and ran to Canada. More Canadians crossed the U.S. border to join the Marines and fight in Vietnam than Americans went to Canada to avoid fighting in Vietnam. So in my mind, the question is not what's wrong with you, Canada. It's what happened to you, Canada. You used to be cool.
But we make fun of the ones who went across the border that way, not the ones who came over. Those bitches are cool. The ones who signed up to fight in World War II. Yeah. We will, that is a debt we'll never be able to repay. But the ones who cross because they're pussies, fuck them.
And Prospero has a good point. Hitler declared war on the U.S., which helped spur the Canadians also. Yeah, because it was, and Britain was being attacked, and technically they're a part of the wider Dominion at that point. But yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, history has a lot of nuance. How about that? And it's fun to poke at it, especially with somebody who wants to talk about it. Yeah, wants to talk about it seriously.
So getting back to the college.
Sure. College.
You did ask very early on what could possibly be used to fix it. Like where could this go? And I remember watching.
Do you think it can be fixed? Is what I asked.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, fixed is. Do I think it could be taken in a different direction? I think might be a better way to put it. I remember watching, and because he has to come up eventually in this discussion, a Jordan Peterson video. From it was probably 6 or 8 months ago, where he was actually in Canada, I believe, at the time, talking about what can you possibly do about these departments, and he said defund them. And I thought right away, yes, that's valuable. But what needs to be added onto that, in my opinion, as a necessary addendum, is it has to be ongoing, 3 to 4 years at a minimum of increasing levels or decreasing levels of funding. That is the only time that it will make a difference, where they will start to ask questions. Evergreen State College is such a great case study for these things. It is a far-blown equity-focused college. social justice, left, right, and center. You can't turn around without running into it. In the sciences and everywhere else, there's no sacred grounds where it's purely for the sake of truth. After their kerfuffle last summer with their all the protests, they literally held Brett Weinstein hostage. They held the president of the university later hostage. And I mean that by you weren't allowed to leave. And if you were going to go to the bathroom, we're going to have students escort you. Yeah, that's taking somebody hostage. To that point, their enrollment drops dramatically for incoming freshmen. That's a major hit for tuition. This year it was 35%, or last year, excuse me, was 35% of the incoming. The numbers aren't in for this year because it's, just happening right now in the month of September, right? But the numbers are projected to be very far down by early enrollment. Those are major funding hits for them. And they can only go to the state for so much money to make up for that because everybody has a budget, the state included. So what did they do? Well, they, quote, restructured, which means, make some hard calls on what they're going to cut. They fired groundskeepers. They fired janitors. They fired everybody but the people that caused the problem to begin with.
Prospero says, man, the free market has taught Evergreen a lesson. To a lesser extent, same at Mizzou. Actually, Mizzou took a much bigger hit overall, if I'm not mistaken, because theirs is still ongoing. They still haven't recovered from the shit they pulled.
No, but in my mind, it's like having sat in departmental meetings, and I don't say that as a matter of importance. I say that as a matter of bitterness. Doctoral students are asked to what? They're asked to sit in on doctoral students on departmental and faculty meetings to say, well, student involvement, and here's a decision that we in concert with the students made. When you are strongly discouraged from speaking, you are not to talk. There's an absolutely power differential there, and there is between you and a professor, but you're asked to be physically in the room so they can say this was done with consultation with students.
Oh, no. Sure.
And so you sit there as a fly on the wall, basically. And I can tell you that they do make calls on where to cut things. And if you have a budget shortfall, it's not with instructors. It's with how many students we're going to take to incoming students. We can only have this many master's students and this many doctoral students because we can't afford any more. And it's like, yeah, you're getting more and more top heavy. You have more and more instructors masquerading as scholars masquerading, pretending to be administrators. Like it's just, or pretending to be scholars. Sorry, I can't talk.
Administrators pretending to be scholars.
That's right. Because they don't publish anything.
Right. Well,
they don't teach classes. What the fuck are you doing? Like, how is it? And why is it that they're not having their feet held to the fire over this? Well, because the people that are in admin in the department are either doing the same thing, or what are they going to do? This person's tenured. There's only so much pressure you can put upon them.
What do you think? Because from the sounds of it, I mean, these decisions are made internally. So you have administrators and professors voting on where money goes. But isn't that kind of excuse me, it would be self-defeating for them to say, oh, we need to cut professors, wouldn't it?
Oh, you mean, well, of course, it would be like representatives in Congress voting to limit their own authority. Yeah, right. That's going to happen.
Voting on their own paycheck increase. Yeah. It's amazing how those tend to go up.
As a side note, I'd like to bring it up. There's only one person I can think of in history who actively did that. George Washington, which is one more reason he's the man, basically. Mm-hmm. I will not take the office of the president. You've given the executive office far too much power here. I will not run until you limit it. What? Who the hell ever did that? Well, Washington did, and that's why he rocks.
I do have a question about this, though. I understand what you and Peterson are saying about defunding.
Just real quick, Polynarf asks, are you going to Evergreen State College? No, I'm sane.
I was like, what did he say? Oh, I caught that.
Well, I would be a crazy man. Like, you think I'm black-pilled now? Jesus Christ, that university, it's just... Sorry, go ahead. You're asking.
Yeah, the question. I see what you and Peterson are saying with defunding, but how do you make that happen when the people that have control are the ones who would get to decide what's defunded?
Okay, because and this is a great question, and that is what I meant by the 3 or 4 years. You have contracts with your instructors, like legally based, of course. So it would eventually get to a point where we can literally not afford to pay our professors, keep the lights on. Well, not the lights, because that's paid for by the university admin, but figuratively, we cannot afford to run this place anymore. It's gotten to that point because of low enrollment and reduction in our funding from the city, the state, and the county, right? And the federal government, of course. So what happens when you can't afford to pay your bills anymore, but you're legally bound to pay those bills? What do? Bankruptcy.
Yeah.
You're fucked, because now you're in an untenable position. You have to start borrowing money. Like, as an individual consumer or a business, what you would do is borrow money to try and make up for that. As a university, you would go beg the government for more money. And if they don't come up with it, you're really fucked now. That backed into a wall of a position is the only way that anything would change. And I'm sensing like SDAs out there listening to this going, these fuckers are just making it sound so bad. And you know, I don't even disagree with a lot of the things that SDA was saying. It's just the areas where, my only point is, the areas where it's bad, these people possess a very large microphone and a very strong stick, where others do not. Therefore, things tend to go in their direction, even though they are not a huge group. It's like the Twitter hate mobs. They're not really that many of them, but holy shit, do they get action. The David Hoggs of the world, you know.
Real quick, let me get this super chat. Sure. Ragnar, thank you. They can self-publish their own textbooks every year and reinforce all this nonsense and be bullshit from an initial point that they invented on their own. I have a problem with professors using their textbooks they wrote. How do you feel about that?
You have a problem with professors doing what with textbooks they wrote?
Using them in their class.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I don't know. Like, it's like, do you have a problem with human foibles? Like, of course they're going to do that. Like, there's nothing new about that. I can't tell you how many classes I've been in where the name on the front of the textbook is the person standing at the front of the class. Of course, they're going to make it required reading.
But don't you think that's unethical?
I think it's plausibly deniably unethical, ethical. Like, in the sense, like, you know, if you were to ask the professor, isn't that unethical what you're doing? My textbook, written in concert with numerous people, and I am an expert in the field, was put together after years of research. And of course, it's the best book for the field, for this particular course. I'm the one teaching the course, and I know what the students need to know. Who's better to say than I? So it's plausibly deniable that there's something unethical about it.
But couldn't you? Okay, I understand what you're saying, that of course they're going to do that. I just think that that is something they shouldn't be able to do.
Well, as opposed to, because if you can't do that, you'll do something else, right? It's like a mafia thing. It's like they'll always figure a way around it. One professor that I had did not want to do that because of the optics of it, having their own book there, right? So she made required reading one book that we only used one chapter out of, and it seemed shoehorned into the syllabus. I went online and looked up this professor who she went to school with, and that professor had made required reading her book.
But, you know, at least in that case, that's still dirty, but at least the optics do look better. Because one of my daughter's classes, she mentioned the professor's name and she happened to have her book out. I'm like, wait, is it this guy? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, that's dirty as fuck. That is dirty as fuck. I get to tell you what you have to buy at a incredible price, by the by, to take my course. And like, hey, that's dirty. That's dirty.
It is. But it's like, I don't know. It's like, you've worked in a number of different businesses, Monkey. Haven't you seen people skirt the rules in all sorts of like ways that aren't technically illegal, but God damn it, shouldn't it be? Like,
yeah, you're not wrong. And I'm not okay. For the record, this is not just something about college professors. I remember people used to have to get Sam Walton's book when they became managers at Walmart, but they gave it to them. You know what I mean? So technically, Walmart gets the sale for it because somebody had to pay for that book,
right?
But it wasn't the people who were being taught the book. You know what I mean? So I didn't have a problem with that. That's padding the number, but at least it's not costing the person that's forced to read it.
The thing that, in terms of like published books being very far gone. If you're in a field like political science or even sociology, how you fit your own bias into something is the amount of space put on something, not the particular words that you say. So if you include cosmopolitanism and intersectionality as full-on chapters in your textbook, they are by the act of including them as required reading in the textbook, you are giving those things normalization. You're acting as if they're as important as something as rational choice theory, which is tried and true, been around forever, has solid scientific grounding underneath it, or sociological choice theory. Those are important things inside of political science, institutionalism, and so forth. And then you include intersectionality in that. And it's like, well, because that's your pet theory that you work in, and by including it in the textbook, it's like watching cable news. They will talk about one subject and act as if it's a subject for discussion that absolutely should be on the table, when really it's because they think so. And they're saying like, oh, as a journalist, I'm just reporting the news. Yeah. And you're also including your pet theories.
Yes. Yeah, I get what you're saying there. I don't know, man. I just worry about going back to this paper in the Quillette. I just worry about what academia is becoming. I get that professors are going to put their own pet theories and crap in there. But when somebody writes a peer-reviewed paper and it is killed because of feelings, and let's be honest about what we're talking about here. This paper was killed because of feelings.
Yeah.
A scientific paper, a mathematical, statistical review killed because of feelings. I think I don't think we come back from that. And I respect what you and Peterson say about the funding for it. But even with cutting funding, I mean, or I suppose your theory would be to review funding every 3 to 4 years.
Well, no, just continue to cut funding until they're forced to make really hard decisions, because all the janitors will be gone and all the groundskeepers will be gone, and every tiny piece of fat that they can cut will be gone. The universe will be overrun with trees and grass and shit. And that now they're finally going to have to look at it, because one of the big untalked about things, and this is a really important point, you're talking about like top heavy, is administration growing? I would say a larger problem with that, because it actually affects the quality of education that parents like yourself are paying untold amounts of money for. The amount of tenure track and tenured positions versus sessional instructors. As a sessional instructor, you're paid you're paid by the semester. You're a contract employee, and that's usually they're called contract instructors or simply instructors. You're paid by the semester. You're paid you're paid pretty low. It's surprising. And they're always the first year courses that have 150 to 200 students in them. The big auditorium classrooms. Those are the ones that you instruct that the tenure track and tenure instructors don't want to teach. They get put on them, and and to make ends meet as a person like that. And I'm going to be one of these people. So, I have strong sympathy for them. You will have to teach 2 or 3 of those a semester. Imagine having 600 papers to grade. This is why you have TAs, because there's no way that any human would be able to get that done. And that's where the majority of the instruction happens, is through people that aren't tenured. They don't care about their research. And this represents the majority of teaching that is done by people that can be their contract employees, so they don't have to fire anyone. They don't have to offer them health benefits. It just comes to a time when, if you do not say the right things and you do not teach in the right way, or if they assume that you're not as angry at Trump as they are, your contract will simply not be renewed, and they'll find someone else, because there's an endless supply of you, because there's a surplus of people like us.
But this is where I wonder if it's going to be possible to switch things. If you do this, even if you go, okay, we're going to cut, because that'll force them to make changes, aren't you just going to end up with even a more ideological shit show in that spot? Aren't they going to get rid of the and what really worries me is that they're going to go, you know what? We need women's studies more than we need math. Isn't that a worry that they're going to get rid of people who are doing actual research that they dislike to hang on to people who are doing bullshit that say what they want them to say?
Yes.
And see, that's
and more so, professors don't retire; they die at their desk.
Yeah, indeed. I would. Fuck it. Why not?
I would too. Like, are you kidding? What does retirement for an older person look like? Well, you get to sit at your desk and you talk to people and you read things you like. Oh, you mean being a senior professor?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. It'll be great.
No, I want college to be a place where people actually go and learn, and I want it to be hard and a place where there's all kinds of ideas that are challenged and thrown out there. Even if the one thing, the what the hell's her name, Lindsey
Graham?
No, you ass. The one who the TA up in Canada who played the Jordan Peterson thing.
Sure.
She got in trouble for playing that when she wasn't even on Jordan's side at that time. She was just saying, okay, this is what somebody thinks, basically. And I want college to be a place where people can hear what all kinds of people think so they can make up their own goddamn mind. Frankly, I think we should be doing that in high school.
Yeah.
And instead, Lindsay Shepard, thank you, Lothbox Brox. But instead, I mean, it just seems to get more and more ideological and specifically bent left every fucking day.
Well, okay.
It worries me.
Every decade, and I'll get back to that in a quick second. Crack says, so what are you saying, that it's become a club? Yeah. Like, were you joking or were you,
yes.
I hope that was
what
sarcasm.
We're saying.
Yeah, that's precisely what we're saying. And it's the amount of times that I've heard it's like, your field of study is not a wide field like what I research inside of political science. And the answer to what that means translated is don't piss people off.
Falcon Millennial, thank you. Remember, since the late 70s, early 80s, we've been telling kids to go to college. In aviation, we can't get people who can maintain the aircraft, not to mention the government interference. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. I watched this happen. I grew up with the everybody should go to college phase when they started pushing that. And it's weird. It really is weird because right now, if you really want to make a lot of money and you need to get on it quick because they're starting to push it more and more, welders are making money hand over fist because there's not enough of them.
You stole my words. I was just going to say trades, specifically welding. Holy shit. There's six figures in welding, and that's not an exaggeration. Like there really is. High-end electricians, if you're, you know how much money my friend makes doing fiber optic cable laying, because there's all sorts of buildings that need high-speed internet access like installed into them, and new buildings and stuff. That's a huge windfall of cash. If you want to go into a great job, go into that. If you want to get educated at the same time, go to a community college or do both and take a minor in history if you want it like that. We were talking some of the 70s and the 80s. This is the thing, is like, it seems to be turning more and more left every day. I would argue that it's been turning more and more left for decades. This has not been a recent phenomena. It's been building towards that. And I believe the pendulum will swing to the other side. How do you fix it? It will be nothing that'll happen inside of 20 years. It takes a long time to change an institution's direction. They're like ships at sea. They don't move fast or change direction quickly. It takes a long time to institute change.
Point Curation, thank you so much. Don't go to post-sec. Save money for super chats. I like how you think. But see, I keep hearing people talk about the pendulum swinging back, and I have not seen any evidence that it's doing so.
Not yet. The anger has to build. I mean, if you think about general movements, it's like, all news anchors now on the majority of mainstream media stuff talk like a bunch of hippies did in the late 60s and early 70s. Government's not to be trusted, and the police are all out to get us, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's because they all grew up and had children and taught them this shit. Things take a long time to go through. Cultural change takes a long time, and as anybody who's ever studied institutional theory will point out, there has to be what they call exogenous pressures, big fancy academic term for external, because we can't say external, we have to say exogenous to sound fancy. And the exogenous pressures have to build up over time. External shocks happen in the form of mission failure, and it has to be extremely public. A complete failure of something like outright riots on campuses and so on and so forth. Like this is what causes change, but it happens slowly as the change occurs over time. Like, what are those mechanisms of change? In the same way we slowly hire more and more like-minded left thinkers, that will become increasingly unpopular. And then slowly more people will be hired in a different direction. Like I said, in 20 years, you might spot a change, but you won't spot a change in the next 5. No way.
Well, yeah, see, it's not even the next 5 that I'm worried about. I mean, I'm looking at the next 100 and I don't see, maybe this is just my, I hate to say pessimism, but it's quickly turning into pessimism. As I watch the world around me, and not colleges specifically, the whole world, the Western world we live in, the United States, and the media, and the way things have been going, I've not seen backlash. I was really hoping that we would have seen some with the Kavanaugh testimony yesterday, when the one senator actually brought up the McCarthy thing, and "Senator, have you no fucking shame?" And everybody's like, "That guy's a dick."
Well, okay. Wow, you just jumped over a whole bunch of things there, and let me see if I can rapid fire respond to them. I mean, you're talking about the United States, right? Like, you're not seeing any signs of it, really? You're not in the EU?
No,
you didn't see a sign of it with Brexit. You didn't see a sign of it with Hungary. We're not taking the immigrants. Hungary defunding every bit of state money going to gender studies and social justice studies because it's of, quote, no scientific value. Like, Hungary's based, man.
And that's great for Hungary. Here in the U.S., no, I don't see that at all. I see it just pushing further and further to the point where you can literally have your career threatened for pointing out that a movement threatens people's careers.
Think of the exposure that has happened to feminism alone. When you have Anita Sarkeesian at last year's VidCon saying how much damage has been done by, and pointing at Sargon, by garbage humans like this, because you type in feminism on YouTube and it's people like him that you see. It is.
And the problem is, after that, we've seen a whole slew of people deplatformed.
That's the pushback, because that is a sign they're worried. It's like we say in the whole Comicsgate thing. This is winning. It might not look like it, but this is winning.
Real quick, Falcon Millennial, a friend just got a job at Delta. Just got his airframe and power plant rating. First job out of a 2-year tech school, $72K a year, no job experience. Good for him. And again, I'm not saying people shouldn't go to college, but if you're only going to college to, I'm using air quotes here, find yourself, or you really have no reason to go yet. And like Polly, he said, if you're looking to be well-rounded, that is a reason to go to college. But if you're just doing it because everybody says you need to go to college, looking at technical careers are a good idea.
I would say more damaging, honestly, and people really need to think about, like, if you have kids, grandkids, whatever the issue is, if they're doing it to be in a holding pattern.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
It's like, I came out of high school. I don't really know what I want to do. I've enjoyed learning. I've enjoyed going to school and getting grades for emotional validation. I think I'm going to keep doing that. And there's a lot of cultural stuff around going to college. Parties, friends, dorms, pot, yay. Like, and so why wouldn't you want to go, right? And so that's a holding pattern. That's not a reason, if you know what I mean. And a reason to discourage someone. If you want to learn, why don't you go to community college? No, Dad, I want to go to the University of Honolulu. I wonder why.
No shit. Again, I think college serves a very important place in our society, a very important need. I think we've just gotten a little out of hand with it. And technical schools are technical schools and community colleges are a great way to get further education. And with the technical school, guys, I am not kidding you. You can seriously make a lot of money if you go into the right fields. Yeah, I'm being told that Trump has asked the FBI to do the investigation. That is not surprising.
And it's at least it was done by Trump, who will then order the Department of Justice, under whose auspices the FBI operates, as opposed to Congress saying do it. It's like, wait a minute, you don't have that.
What? You're right there, but it did come about because I don't know if you saw the hearing earlier.
I did.
It's all because Flake said he's not voting unless they have it.
Technically, he said he would be more comfortable.
Yeah,
the fucking weasel.
I did think it was great the way it happened, though, because Grassley, he snuck that vote in quick because the Democrats thought there was going to be a vote on the FBI investigation.
Yeah,
nope, this is the vote on the moving it to the floor. But that's not what we're here for.
That's what kills me. It's like, nobody forwarded that motion. Why were you thinking that? And a motion for what? That to suspend our vote unless to suspend our vote to send a unified letter to the president or to the Department of Justice asking them to author. There's a separation of powers thing here, people. Like,
yeah, indeed. Yeah, the FBI works for the president, not for you. Sorry, but Ford's lawyer is demanding no limit on time. Those two idiots three idiots, can demand anything they want. They don't get to decide.
And you can't limit an investigation in time in that way. The attorney general can demand that, guys, you need to wrap it up by date X. Come on, date X is 4 days away. You need to wrap this up. That's something that the attorney general can demand. But the idea that Congress can authorize a specific scope and time limit upon an investigation, no, that's a ridiculous claim. And he's doing it for. Guys, this is all politics. All of this is just politics, and it frustrates me that people don't get this. The people that are outraged over, oh, well, Dr. Ford, I believe, I don't believe. This is all just politics. Trump nominated somebody. They hate Trump. They don't want another conservative on the Supreme Court because they're told that it's going to be the end of their progressive push forward into expanding rights. That's it. Everything else is just a sideshow to that.
Yeah, this is all politics, and it has been. And I've mentioned this on a few streams. Trump gave a giant middle finger to the Democrats by not nominating Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh was on the Starr investigation, and this was a I beat Hillary. His nomination was politics. It made far more sense to nominate the chick, especially if what you were looking for was conservative values. I don't really want to say decisions. Her record is far more conservative than even Kavanaugh, so it made more sense to go with her. But this was a giant fuck you to the Democrats and to Hillary Clinton, which is funny. Thank you, Ragnak. The demographics are already set. It doesn't matter how much we expose them. They will own the U.S. after 2024. They have successfully broken politics. Here's one thing you do have to see. I'm not really a pessimist. I'm not. I'm actually an optimist. And here's what you have to understand about 2024. A lot of the people that you see bitching and moaning right now, in 2024, they're going to be 6 years older. They're going to be, a lot of them are going to be on their own with a job, having to pay a mortgage, having to pay their own way and getting off mommy and daddy's insurance, which now runs through being 26 years old. A lot of these people are going to have to grow up. And if you look at the hippie movement, do you know who hippies became? They became yuppies, because it's amazing how much you suddenly learn to love money when it's yours.
And Ragnarok, you're like, read the Federalist Papers on the, and specifically James Madison, who's the unsung hero of the founding fathers, in my opinion. He's just a brilliant man, and his arguments for why in a republic you need an electoral college. It's a brilliant idea. Don't worry so much about the demographics, because the electoral college is there to make sure that high population dense areas that are having gifts given to the plebs to make sure they vote in a given direction. You can't run a republic that way. It just doesn't work. And that was the brilliance of having an electoral college split up, to not be able to allow that to occur, and a bicameral legislature as well. It is an extremely robust system, the republic, and that's why I'm very optimistic about the future. As for the demographics being set that you described, hey, if you're referring to immigration amounts have been up and down throughout history. When you had the Jim Acosta arguing with President Trump's immigration advisor back and forth, it's a brilliant conversation to watch, because you have Cosmopolitan Acosta arguing with the president's immigration advisor, Stephen, help me out here. Someone in chat will say it. And he's just like, we increased immigration amounts in the past, and then we decreased them, and then we increased them again, and we decreased them. And there were reasons for doing that at the time, economic, social, and the list goes on. Nothing is set. Things change. Don't worry about it. And you mentioned the hippies becoming yuppies. Yeah, that was like 4% of the population, if even that. Everybody forgets about the giant middle America. Take a look at the 2016 election map. It's all red through the center, and then there are these two tiny blue splotches over in New York and California. And that tells you pretty much. Stephen Miller, thank you very much, Prospero. Prospero's sharp as hell, man. Wow.
I expect to see the blue wave is not going to happen, but they are going to pick up seats here in 2018.
Yeah,
because that's historically what happens. Unless you have some major thing, typically a war, the party that controls the White House loses seats in the House and Senate during the midterm election, and it comes from people being they don't get as fired up about the midterm elections. The side that gets fired up about the midterm elections is the one that's mad at the president. So you're going to see some shifting there. Whether they're going to take either house, that's up in the air. Maybe they might take the Senate. It's really close. They only have 6 seats they can try to pick up, but they only need 2 to have the majority.
The big difference that that's true. And thank you, Obama era Senate, for making it 51 to matter, not 60, right?
Yeah.
And which I think is a terrible idea. That was awful then, and it's awful now, that it shouldn't be a simple majority. It's
right. There used to be rules. There were some things that were simple majority, but they're very few. And
but you had to go to the parliamentarian to get a special request for it. The so-called, like now you can do it like the nuclear option whenever you need to, and that's
important matters were always 2/3. And yeah, it's fucking moronic. Thank you. Thank you. Who's that fucker from Vegas? Harry Reid. You dick.
Yeah, Reid. Harry Reid's got a very storied career if you look into it. His fight with the mafia and
he's
that guy. The boss of Las Vegas tried to have him whacked at one point. He's got a fascinating storied history, that guy.
But I see. I love politics. I really do, and that's why I enjoy watching this stuff. But when it comes to the actual, what I think is going to happen to the country, I do think we're on a bad path, and I don't see anything that's going to change that. But like you said, it takes moments, and those tend to come.
One came on, the 9th of November, 2016. I will never forget the New York Times 92% chance that Hillary Clinton was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
I will never forget that as long as I live. I still to the day watch the supercuts of the Young Turks reaction over election.
Glorious.
Isn't it fun? Cenk is sweating and he's getting shinier and shinier. It's just great.
There have been elections where I've supported somebody and I've watched them lose, and it's like, that sucks. I have never been so depressed as they were over an election.
Oh, I know.
They were so fucking. I mean, you could just see depression set in.
Remember the video shots from Clinton headquarters at the Cavett Center in New York?
Oh, God, yes.
You would have thought they were just told a lethal organism has been released and you're all going to die. Say goodbye to your loved ones.
Right? Thank you, Kingslayer. I think the Kavanaugh hearings are going to cause Republican voter mobilization. Also, #MonkeyPolly2020. Thank you for putting me first on that. I appreciate that.
Well, the old man always does go first.
Oh, fuck off.
Somebody said something up here, and we were talking about having a debate. Are things getting worse? Are they getting better? And it was point curation. The world is on the edge of a cataclysm. War, famine, pestilence, don't know what, but we are not ready. Bro, chill. That's simply not true. You are living in the best possible time. This is the golden time right now. I know it doesn't seem like it, but this is winning. You're less likely to die of a disease. Our life expectancies are better than they've ever been. You're living in the pinnacle for rights. Yes, they're at risk, but freedom is never free. Eternal vigilance is the price. This is a great time to be alive.
Poly is right and wrong. He's absolutely right. You know what? No matter what you hear me bitch about, this is the best time to be alive. And if you don't believe that, you need to look up history, period. Even as much as I love the 80s, now is so much better.
Jack's like, it's not true. It's way worse than that. Thanks, Jack.
No, where me and you disagree is I think we are on a downward trajectory that I don't think we can stop right now. And you seem to still be optimistic. Is that a fair assessment?
If anything, I'm a big fan of the American Revolution, and if studying it in more detail has reinforced for me is how fragile republics are and how fragile systems are that establish individual rights, and how incredibly special the United States is. And any country that goes along those lines, but we're talking within a U.S. context right now, Canada and Britain and so on. That's why I hate to see Sweden and Britain going in the direction they're going. They're people that should be legitimately worried. You know what I mean? It's a fragile thing, y'all. And what bugs me about colleges and universities and stuff is that people will actually debate things that there is such a thing as American values. Well, what does that mean, really? And all this postmodernist stuff. It's like, you fucktard. It's really simple. Look at the Bill of Rights. There's your fucking American values right there, based entirely around the liberty of the individual. Well, groups are more important. Groups are protected when individual rights are protected, because groups have to be made up of individuals. When you respect individual rights, things get better. People have individual determination to do better for themselves and their family. This is what has seen the upshot of every Western nation since the idea began. It's important. And that these ideas are not promoted as being good, and socialism, well, this is the better for all of people because daddy government will protect you. No, when government is there to protect your individual rights and ensure contracts, be they social or legal contracts, things get better. They don't get worse.
And this is where I think we're on the downfall, and it is especially noticeable with free speech. There are so many people in our country right now who are proud to say they think speech should be limited, and God, that breaks my brain. It breaks my fucking brain, because to me, outside of life, there's nothing more precious as a civil right than your right to speak, and to see people proudly, and these are largely college students, so hopefully they grow out of it, or run into somebody like Polly who can, go, hey, dummy, this is what it says. But these are people who are happy to go, we should limit what people are allowed to say because you might hurt somebody's feelings. Go fuck yourself. And the problem isn't them. It's not them. It's really not. And this is something I'm beating this drum, because this is where you guys need to pay attention. This is where you guys need to really hit people if you actually care about this stuff. The people out there who are screaming, we need to stop saying the N-word because it hurts feelings. They're not your problem. Your problem is your middle America person who goes, you know what? Yeah, there's no real reason to say that. It'll hurt somebody's feelings. That's the person that you need to convince. That's the person that is causing the problem, because that's where all of political correctness has exploded. It's not the loud people. There's very few of them if you actually pay attention. Very fucking few. It's those people who are like, yeah, I don't want to be mean. So yeah, that makes sense. I could give up saying a word or two if it means that I'm not being mean to somebody else. That's where your problem is. It's for all my bullshit talk about colleges, and I mean what I say there, but for all of that, they're not your problem. They're really not. It is your middle American your soccer mom, your fucking male feminist bullshit asshole, people who just are trying to be nice. That's how it's always sold. Why do you need to say that word? Why do you need to talk to someone that way?
I would disagree. I agree generally, but what lay underneath it is the fear of being like, okay, so I've got this nice feeling, right? Where it's like, I don't want to hurt anybody. And I really don't. Like, so, it's like, well, so then, and then you monkey say to me, well, then you must agree with this idea. No, I don't. What are you, a racist? Therein lies the problem. The big stick that can happen if you don't agree.
Well, that is a consequence of what I was talking about, because this has grown, like I said, out of political correctness, which started with the idea, or exploded with the idea of, if you tell a racist joke, then you're a racist. You don't want to be a racist, do you? Real quick, Kingslayer, don't you know by speaking you silence minorities? Indeed. Hang on just 1 second.
All right, I'm taking over the stream. So.
I'm sorry. I have to go help somebody here in just a moment. But I enjoyed this conversation. I do need to go. I'm gonna have to make dinner, but I have to go fix the printer upstairs. People don't know how to put the ink in it. I love being the person in my family who knows computers.
I knew that was going to come to haunt me. Platy says he doesn't want to hurt feelings. Still calls me a man. I accidentally misgendered Platy in Discord last night. Yeah, I know. See, and is that not the root of the problem? Platy's kidding, and so am I, and I don't mean misgender Platy, and nobody cares, and like, let's move on, and like, oh, look, problem solved. Let's not turn it into a hate mob,
But you know what? If somebody else saw this and like, what, you misgendered, and there wasn't that he there, they'd be like, damn, that guy's a dick. Why are you a dick, Polly?
Yeah, you transphobe. What's wrong with you? And it's like,
oh God,
Polly's career is over. He misgendered.
Wasn't the movie DC Cab the last politically incorrect movie? No, didn't Revenge of the Nerds come out after that? That had Lamar in it, man, the gay black dude, which may be the funniest thing ever. But I appreciate you coming and talking. We need to do this again, because I really did enjoy this.
Yeah, so did I.
But yeah, I gotta go take care of real life shit before I stream for a 4th time, guys. Just throwing that out there.
You got to allow me to shill. Come check out my channel. We do comic book reviews. That's totally off topic for what we're doing here. But hey, it's me and Jack and Inquisitor, and we have fun. And we do it once a week, and we're on to episode 9 now. When people said we wouldn't be able to hold up our schedule, and we have. So yeah, lots of fun stuff going on in comics. You want to talk about a culture war? It's going on in comics right now with Comicsgate. So if you're interested, if you're curious, come on over and check it out.
And guys, the link to his channel is in the description, because I was prepared today.
And I never am, so good for you.
I'm usually not. I got to go, oh yeah, I'll do that later, and then I forget. So yeah, check out Polly's channel. And are you ever on the Minions still?
Yeah, on occasion. I'm not a host, but they end up dragging me in. I hurt their view count, but they still bring me on anyway.
Yeah, so tune in to Polly's channel and to the Minions of the Zoo. They stream at 11:30 p.m. Eastern time. I think 7 nights a week, right?
That's right.
And you guys will be able to see me. Remember, we are on my channel tonight. Scribe has the night off. I will be on his channel tomorrow night. Irate Bear is sitting in for Scribbles, and I will see you guys in what is that? I can't even do the math. I'll see you at 9. Polly, thanks for hanging out with me. Everybody,
No problem.
We'll see you later. Bye, guys.
Laters.